Yo, 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 visualize shark takes, hit the wave grinding. In the chat, gun shark odds make it rhyming. Sunday vibes, smooth bets, no confining. Hats engaged, can't stop us from shining. Bet on the spread, liking it, keep it tight. Push the odds further, jack on the hindsight. Odds fellows mind grasping the right sight. Hats, caps on heads, winners in plain sight. Hit the light, get in the chat, feel the flow, cash it, every dollar see the bankroll. Sunday grinding picks, now you gotta know. Extra points on the screen, sharp minds always glow. Big parlays, predictions we home. Standing tall, betting knowledge all
On a suddenly not so casual Sunday in November, it is NFL The Extra Points, the big show, week 12. The Shark, the Gun, and the Odds Fellow back with us for more on this beautiful Sunday right here live on Shark and Waters Nation X and YouTube and the Guns Picks channel. Jump in the chat. I'm not sure if we have broadcast issues on X. I'm checking it out right now. It is an opportunity to dominate. Guns Picks, what's going on, brother?
Man, I just had the Brinks truck back up into my driveway and drop off some bags yesterday because I dominated college and I'm ready to dominate the NFL today. Man, do we have an electric card going into the Thanksgiving week. May have to do a little Black Friday shopping with all this cash I got to spend now, but I'm ready to go. I see Odds Fellow's got the shades on and he's ready to go. Odds, how you doing this beautiful Sunday morning?
I think the fall has fully transitioned to the winter. We got a little frost, a little snow the other day up in here in the Northeast. So I think we're full football season. NFL Week 12, it's about to ramp up, right? This is when the teams separate, those playoff pictures get a little bit clearer. Hopefully we can bring you guys some angles and some cash to go with it. So thank you for joining.
Not waiting around. We got a lot of divisional football this week 12, a lot of official plays. And first play, we're going to Miami. Patriots traveling south to a place they have been abysmal for 2+ decades, but we think that's centered on Belichick and Brady, not Mayo and May. Could they have made those names any more convenient? And we're looking at the total here, a three-way collab. Guns has the hat on. He's a fan. A sharp look on the over at 46.
Yeah, I don't get it twisted. I'm not going to take the side on this one. I like the total here, as Shark was just saying. But when we look at this game, you have Miami off back-to-back wins. They're starting to click and get up into some value here with Tua back in the lineup. 4-6 on the year with a -4-point differential, plus 11 net yard average. They're going against a New England team off a loss to the Raiders, but now they're 3-8 on the year with a -6-point differential, -64 net yard average. Now, when we talk about the Miami offense, they found some life with Tua under center. The Miami offense is average 28 points per game in the last four. In their passing has improved as well. 77.7 pass completion rate, and that's just the Tua factor basically. The run defense has also improved remarkably enough, probably because they're rested now that Tua can actually move the ball for this Miami offense. They hold their opponents to 77 rushing yards per game. So what that means is you're going to have to be a little bit more one-dimensional passing the ball here. New England's going to have to. Then you have Miami is 3-1 to the over since Tua's return. Tua's return and the improvement of the Miami rush defense, more teams are choosing to pass the ball, and this is what I'm alluding to. So Miami opponents averaged 25.5 passing attempts per game in the first 6 games versus Miami. But, like I said, Tua was out. When Tua was back in, Miami's last 4 games, their opponents averaged 41 pass attempts per game, and this is why I like the Drake May prop as well here. Drake May has improved on the offensive side of the ball as well, making this offense a little bit more high scoring. 238 passing yards per game, 66.8 pass completion percentage, 9 touchdown passes for Drake May. And then the scoring went from 14.5 points per game to 19 points per game with Drake May under center as well. So you see an improvement there. And of course, the pass attempts have gone up as well because they went from 28.8 pass attempts per game to 35.2 pass attempts per game for Drake May. And the last time these two teams met, the total was set at 37 here, folks. The final score was 15-10, but that was with Tyler Huntley at quarterback and Jacoby Brissett. This wasn't Drake May and Tua. It's a little bit of a different dynamic here. This is also the highest total that New England has seen all season, and the total is 39.5. And when the total is 39.5 or more for the New England Patriots games, the over is 6-2. So take note of that. And I just think this is going to be a wide open scoring event here with Tua and Drake May And also, I like the pass attempts here with Drake May, basically because he averages 35.2 pass attempts per game. And since Tua's returned to the offense, like I said, their opponents have averaged 41 passing attempts per game. So give me the over on the 33.5 passing attempts, and give me the over in the game as well at 46.
The Odds Fellow, welcome to the broadcast. It's a three-way collab. Please add on to that amazing anthology that Guns just dropped there.
I don't want to beat it up too much. I'm excited. We know when he gets going, he gets cooking, right? That gun is always firing. But no, for me, I mean, it's a big story about what's going on with these rosters, with this coaching, and how these teams have changed since the beginning of the year, right? It's all about the line movement. Let Vegas do the work for us to a degree. So that last one closed at 36.5. It went 25-10. Or 15-10 rather, a very ugly one, closing at 25 total points. This time that line soars up, right? Basically a 10-point movement to 46.5. But you really have to look at the QB and the offensive changes. We went from Tyler Huntley versus Jacoby Brissett to Tua versus rookie phenom, who has gotten a lot of praise, including from McVay most recently, rookie phenom Drake May. So remember what Miami has done more recently, statistically against better defenses as well the last 4 weeks. They put up 27 versus Arizona, 27 versus Buffalo, 23 versus the Rams, and then 34. They really hung it on the Raiders. Maybe statistically the only team you say that is a little bit worse, but defensively they've been okay at times. And I think you're going to get Drake May continuing to move the ball and kind of a wide open game. So, usually I stray away from this in division matchups, but I'm letting the lines and the offenses, that quarterback play, do the talking for me here. So I'll take the over 46.5. Let's get another three-way.
Yeah, and just the final point on this. I've been saying this for weeks. The minute Drake May became the starter for the Patriots defense became the North Carolina Tar Heels defense. And the Tar Heels gave up 41 on the road to BC yesterday. I think the Pats might give up 41 to Tua today. And this is where you're going to see a regression from 15 to 10 in week 5. And you guys mentioned it, Huntley versus Brissett. There were still 671 yards in that game. So the defenses were not particularly good in that game. And it somehow went under 15 to 10. This is all over the over. We see a shootout. It's going to be a great game to watch in Miami. Buy it, live it, love it, and let's dominate. Another total from the gun, 1 o'clock in Chicago. We were just talking off the air. Chicago might be the most unpredictable team right now against the spread. A couple weeks ago, they weren't supposed to lose to New England. They got absolutely hammered, 19-3. And then last week, they probably should have won the game against Green Bay. Somehow didn't win. L4 off a cover. Caleb Williams, new offensive coordinator. Eberflus, like, what's going on here? This game is all over the place, ATS. But the gun, all of a sudden, looking at totals with authority, taking the under at 39.5.
Yeah, you said it. I like these sides on some of these games. I'm like, I have no idea. These feels like coin flips. However, the totals are speaking to me. And I think we have another one that's speaking to me here with Minnesota and Chicago at Soldier Field today at 1 o'clock. When you look at both of these teams, they both have great defenses, right? Statistically, 7th in opposing scoring. The Chicago Bears are giving up 18.7 points per game. They're 4th in opposing third down conversion percentage, and they're number 1 in opposing touchdown red zone scoring percentage. So this is a bend not break type of defense here for the Chicago Bears. When you got the Minnesota defense, they're ranked 4th in opposing scoring, giving up only 17 points per game, and they're top 10 in most of the key statistical categories, including touchdowns per game, where they're ranked 7th to opponents. On the offensive side of the ball, is an interesting way to look at this, right? We know about Chicago. Chicago has a difficulty scoring. That's why they fired their OC a few week or so ago. They're ranked 22nd in offensive scoring, only putting up 19.4 points per game. And that was against the 30th toughest schedule, by the way. So this is not a good offense here for Chicago. They just can't get the biscuit in the basket, as they say. But when you look at Minnesota, they were on a high-scoring clip in their first 6 games, right? Averaging 28 points per game. However, look at what happened in the last 4 games. This team has regressed offensively, only putting up 19 points per game. And that was against teams like the Rams, the Colts, Jacksonville, Tennessee, last 4 games. Do you know what they're ranked as far as opposing scoring is? 22nd, 19th, 30th, and 26th. These aren't, the best defenses in the world. These are at the bottom of the NFL, and Minnesota still can't figure out how to score against them. Both offenses play into each other's strength as well, as far as the defense is concerned. Minnesota, pass-oriented offense. Chicago's top 10 pass defense. Chicago's offense wants to run the ball. Minnesota's defense is the best rushing defense in the league. And then you got to look at the trends here. 7-3 to the under Chicago is this season, and this is the second lowest total Chicago has seen all season. Minnesota is 7-3 to the under this season as well. And this is the lowest total that Minnesota has seen all year. This is why I think it is apparent to me that this is going to be an under here. So give me Minnesota, Chicago under the total 39.5.
One quick thing on the change in the play calling. He alluded to all of, Minnesota kind of going off a cliff. They've completely simplified and changed their offensive approach here. This is just the last 2 games, but completely balanced compared to where they were. 38 passing attempts to 43 rushing attempts. In the last game, 32 passing, 33 rushing. This team now wants to run the ball. They want to protect Darnold, who's thrown a lot of picks. You got Caleb Williams on the other side getting sacked all day because he's holding on to the ball too long. He finally was getting it out a little bit quicker last week, but I think it all speaks to a great underplay. The numbers telling you that as well.
I agree. I think the under in this game is the best look. And I think maybe to the surprise of a lot of people who are looking at this from the standpoint of obviously Minnesota 8-2 on the season, had some explosive offensive efforts early season. But if you look at what they're doing right now, 3rd consecutive road game, 12 points, albeit an outlier in Jacksonville 2 weeks ago at 400 yards, just turnovers at the goal line, all this nonsense. Last week, 23-13 at Tennessee. So they've become an under team. And as Ant mentioned, they've really simplified a lot of things. And Chicago, for all their offensive talent, has really struggled scoring the ball. And I think a noteworthy line here, these teams obviously did play twice last year in this division. Both went under significantly, 19-13 and 12-10. Books had the line both times last year at 43.5, and they're moving it down. And here's the interesting point. Theoretically, this should be an upgrade with Caleb Williams and these weapons versus a perceived hot Minnesota team. The last time these teams played, it was Justin Fields versus Josh Dobbs for Minnesota. So when books have an under for those two and move it even further down, given the current context of these teams, it really is a sharp under look here. At 1 o'clock, week 12 in Chicago. I see you guys in Chicago. Love that town. Hope you guys get a dub today, but it will be difficult. Staying the course, divisional football here at 1 o'clock. Guns picks another under. Tennessee, Houston, under 40.5.
Yeah, divisional matchup here at NRG Stadium. I like the total here once again. I'm staying away from the side. It's too egregious in my opinion. But when we look at Houston, their defense this year, they're ranked 11th in opposing scoring, 4th in opposing yards per game, and 5th in opposing yards per play. And Houston has accomplished this when facing the 6th toughest schedule in the league. So this is a legit defense that the Texans are running here. Then you got to look at the Tennessee offense. They've just been god-awful all season, 28th in opposing offensive scoring, 25th in offensive yards per game, and 28th in TD red zone percentage. And then you got the Tennessee offense, middle of the road in the run game, near the bottom in the passing game. Houston's defense, top 10 against the run, top 5 in most key statistical categories against the pass. So, yeah, Tennessee's going to have a difficult time putting numbers up here, in my opinion. Then Houston, top 10 pass rush as well. And you got Tennessee's offensive line that's been abysmal. They're 29th in the league as far as QB sacked percentage. The under is also 5-0 in the last 5 meetings between Tennessee and Houston is an under team this season, 8-3 to the under. And this is the lowest total that Houston has seen all season versus Tennessee. And then Houston put up 34 points last week versus Dallas. Remarkable that they got that under. It took Houston to get 3 takeaways that led to touchdowns, including a scoop and score, to get that over, by the way. So luck was on. Thankfully, I had the over, but the luck was on my side on that one. And this is a divisional game between two good defenses as well. So I expect this to be a low-scoring affair in NRG Stadium. Give you Tennessee, Houston under 48.5 as the play.
Yeah, and I'm officially on Houston here at -7. Did buy a little bit on that to 134. 7.5 is fine. I honestly see a blowout. I just prefer to have 7. It's just more comfortable with number. But as Guns mentioned, this Tennessee team is really inefficient. And, of course, I'm going on X this morning and seeing people buying the Titans and all the contrarian wizards out there. And, they have their day. But I always say this, and I will continue to say this for the rest of time. People that buy underdogs all the time, no matter what the environment, are just as flawed as people who are looking for short favorites in a really public format of handicapping. And when you really actually go through this particular game, of course, yet another divisional matchup. So we are data abundant going back to last year. But I think starting this year, I think Houston is really a nice ATS buy here. Only 5-5-1 ATS on the year. Started very poorly weeks 1 through 5. Now has momentum. And of course, coming off a blowout win at Dallas in primetime last week, people love to sell them because they just assume auto letdown. There's so much more complexity to pro football than just auto plays. And if you actually look at what Houston is doing this year off of a previous cover, they're actually 3-1 ATS following a cover. So they're a momentum team when they see it. Like Gunn said, when the ball goes in the hoop, they trust it more and they play better. And this is also a great buy low on Houston within the division. Houston is 0-3 ATS in the division this year and 0-2 ATS at home. And we've talked about this in the very brief, albeit successful career for CJ Stroud. Stroud plays so ultra specifically to the environment. He's not good on the road as an underdog out of the division. He's good as a home favorite. He hasn't been very good at home in the division, but you actually have to really go opponent by opponent. He's 0-2 at home against Jacksonville ATS, 0-2 against Indy ATS, 1-0 against Tennessee. Last year, week 17, it was New Year's Eve last year. A great campaign it was. Houston 26-3. CJ Stroud versus Ryan Tannehill at that point. I'll tell you guys this. Will Levis is not an upgrade off an aging Tannehill last year, and books agree. That line was Houston -5.5. This moved up open to -9. This is the heaviest home divisional line of Stroud's career. And final point on this. When you look at Tennessee's calendar, yes, they are terrible ATS. They have reset their mean very low. They're not a buy low going north to a different environment. They're 1-9 ATS, average outright loss by 14.4 points per game. And their only covers this year came against an injured backup quarterback situation in Miami and against Drake May and the Patriots, both AFC East out of division teams with young or backup quarterbacks. This has blowout written all over it. It's not a sell high for Houston. They're a momentum team, and Tennessee is in complete, utter disarray. Under for the gun, official for me, Houston -7. We want to talk about a few 1 o'clock games we don't have officially, but we have, of course, always the best information for you guys on NFL The Extra Points. When we named this show over the summer, the whole point, the play on words, The Extra Points, you get more information here than you will get anywhere in the world. I will stand by that. Looking at 1 o'clock, MetLife Stadium, very interesting game here. And you wouldn't normally assume that a 4-6 Bucks team versus a 2-8 Giants team, 0-5 at home, would be interesting. But the Giants have a way of making everything interesting despite how horrible they are. Bench Daniel Jones, then he gets cut, gives an emotional press conference. Maybe that emotion would have played better in the locker room for the last 5 years, not after the fact. Insert Tommy DeVito, Syracuse, Illinois, New York Giants. A lot of data there. And Baker Mayfield outdoors in New Jersey in November. Could this get any better? Is this the most entertaining 4-6, 2-8 matchup in league history? Anthony, any thoughts on this one?
I'm shocked they went to him right after having another backup there all season long, and they bring DeVito out. They want to dust out a little bit of that chicken parm and that home cooking. It's an interesting one. Look, I actually think the one thing I wanted to talk about, because I don't think the Giants are right. I think that roster is an issue. I do think Daboll's safe. I think he has a good relationship with the Mara, so don't look for a coaching change there. I think they're going to try and turn this thing over, get him another quarterback and another chance, which means they need to go full tank mode. Now, that being said, maybe that's the reason they went with DeVito and not Drew Lock. I actually think the look here could be because I like Tampa. I like Tampa as a teaser leg. But I think for me, it's Tampa Bay plus 275, plus 300 in that range to win the division. They're only, one game out in the loss column. They did lose to Atlanta twice, so they don't hold the tiebreakers, which is probably why those odds sit that way. But listen to this schedule going forward. They get the New York Giants, Las Vegas, Carolina Panthers twice, Dallas, who knows what kind of shape they're going to be in by the second to third last week of the season, and then NOLA. The only one likely playoff team that this Tampa Bay Bucks team plays is the Chargers. Now Atlanta has the bye right now, and then they go Chargers, Vikings, Commanders, all losable games, right? They also have Giants, Raiders, and Panthers. So you need the Bucs to make it up. It has to start today. So from a pure motivation standpoint, there's no room for error for this Tampa Bay Buccaneers team. So that's how I'd look at it. Teaser leg for Tampa or a futures bet on the Bucs if you think there's a little bit of value there.
Yeah, Guns, any thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with that. I think Tampa is prime for a teaser leg on this one. If you can get it to a pick 'em, basically, I think this is a good look. Listen. The Giants are in shambles. They proved it. They took Daniel Jones and said, you know what, we're done with this experiment. You're gone. And then they put in Tommy DeVito, which was a weird move because he was a third string quarterback. Basically skipped over their backup. I don't think he's happy there. So there's a lot of weird locker room tension in there. I know Tommy Colcuts will get maybe a few asses in the seats. You'll get a couple pinches in the crowd from his agent. But this game gives me zero excitement. Who needs it more is Tampa. I mean, Tampa's going to need this more. I think the Giants have basically said, we're just going to try to lose as many games as possible, get a top draft pick, get a new quarterback. Maybe we can get into the Shador Sanders business. Who knows? But we'll see what happens as far as the. I think there's going to be a full clean out of the locker room. I think they're going to fire their coach. I think they're going to maybe fire their GM. I think it's going to be a full flush out completely by the end of the season. So the Giants are unplayable to me, but I would put Tampa in a teaser, maybe with like a Houston or a Miami.
Christopher Borshire says Tommy Cutlets. We say Tommy Cold Cuts.
I said Tommy Cold Cuts. Yeah, I meant cutlets. Yeah, sorry.
Tommy Meatball Parm.
Cutlets when he wins.
Do anything.
Cold cuts when he loses.
You just pick like any sort of mafia-esque name with Tommy. I mean,
I do want the chat to tell us the over/under on how many times that stupid agent is shown on the screen.
Yeah.
The guy that looks like he's like a foot soldier for the Soprano crew.
Yeah,
I want more.
He was a college quarterback. I think he played college football. He played quarterback.
Yeah.
What did he play at? Syracuse, right? Tommy DeVito.
And Illinois for a little bit too, I think.
Yeah, he did for a minute, right?
Yeah. Anyway, this game, this is just a brutal spot. Like this is where you want to buy Tampa Bay so much, but you also think the Giants might show up here. DeVito last year actually did play 6 games, 2 home games, both outright wins.
Mm-hmm.
Both as a dog in this range too. Plus 4.5 against New England, week 12 last year. Maybe not coincidentally, week 12 at home. 10-7 win. And week 14, Monday Night Football last year, did actually beat Green Bay at plus 5.5, 24-22. I think this kid might jolt the group. People, this whole idea that the locker room is so shattered because Daniel Jones is gone. I don't know if Daniel Jones has like some sort of like mole in the New York media, like putting out like positive stories on him. I don't see it. I don't think that guy energized the locker room at all. Like, I think if anything, they're like released of like the flat energy, and they might actually jump up here a little bit. But as you said, Tampa Bay's coming in here on an L4, and it's clearly the hardest portion of their schedule against Baltimore, Atlanta, Kansas City, and San Francisco, and a bye week. So you get a great bye spot for Tampa Bay, but you also get a very good spot for the Giants in theory. As I said, this game is fascinating. Like, I might actually watch this game and just enjoy the wild narratives that surround this game. So we don't have an official on it, but the conversation is very real. My next official, staying in this division, taking Washington at home, 1 o'clock in Guns' backyard, Landover, Maryland, at -10 midweek. That is 10.5 or 11 now. Another great conversation here in divisional football. This is where you want to buy a historically heavy number with Washington. This is not space and value on the dog. This is not books missing the line and giving you free money on a buy low for Dallas. You will hear that narrative if you go into sports bars and sports books across this country. I promise you, it is not the case here. This is a great spot to buy low on Washington. Washington coming off of consecutive losses for the first time all year. Key point, however, 1-point loss to Pittsburgh, representative. Tight loss on the road to Philadelphia. Philadelphia is 8-2, representative loss. This is where it reverses, and this is where Washington has performed very well this year off an outright loss. Took a margin loss on the road in week 1 at Tampa, came back, covered against the Giants, did dominate that game from start to finish, kicked 6 field goals, could have been a lot more margin in that game. And off a week 6 loss at Baltimore, came home against Carolina. I think this is the corollary here. 40-7 blowout. Key point, what was the line? -10.5. So when books have Washington laying double digits, they performed to a plus 33 point differential. And you look at Dallas here. No Dak Prescott. McCarthy is going to get fired. They have no run game. The team is terribly constructed. CeeDee Lamb has had the worst body language on the sideline all year. Parsons making ridiculous quotes about the coach. They clearly don't like the guy. And who's the quarterback right now? Cooper Rush or Trey Lance? Cooper Rush hit a bit of an ATS renaissance 2 years ago, early season, covering, I think, 80% of games. Key point there, though, almost all out-of-division games. His only non-cover was against Philadelphia a couple years ago. And I was looking at the environment of this matchup, and it kind of blew me away. 14 consecutive games here between Dallas and Washington. Average margin of victory either side, 20.3 points per game. These teams have been flip-flopping blowouts for, 6+ years. I would venture to say there's no other divisional point A and point B, team X and team Y, that has this type of margin over the last 14 in the entire sport. So the point here is when these teams get out ahead, doesn't matter if it's Dallas or Washington, they just blow each other out. And you go back to last year, Dallas blew out Washington twice, 45-10 at home on Thanksgiving Day, and week 18, 38-10 on the road. So you talk about divisional line functionality. Dallas won by 28 in this stadium earlier this calendar year in January at -13.5. And now they're +10. Line functionality suggests Washington to win this game by 34 points. I think Washington comes out here, double revenge, off 2 losses, pissed off, and lays down the hammer. Let's fucking go. Any comments on this one, guys? What's going on with the fan base today?
He's got that cowboy hat in the background.
Oh, my giraffe. Might as well. That might as well be the coach on the sidelines. Somebody said drive McCarthy to the airport. Drive Jerry to the airport with him. This team needs a teardown, and they need to change the culture.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with you, Shark. I think this is a complete blowout. Why? I mean, like you said it. I mean, like every time these two teams play each other, it's by margin. And if you're going to be taking the Dallas side to be a contrarian, go ahead. It's like you're probably going to be depressed at the end. This Washington team is on the upward momentum. The Dallas is ready to grab their golf clubs in January and go.
Just keep in mind that fish, Kevin Durant. Fish, Kevin Durant, also on the Commanders.
Yep. Uh-oh.
He's from DC though originally, isn't he?
That's true.
He's from PG County. Yeah, it's Maryland.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I like it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So take from it what you want, but final point on this. We say this every week, but NFL doesn't have that much of a gap in the sport. It's the highest parity league in the world, probably. When you see a line at -10, don't take that lightly. That's like a rare line. That's like a mirage in the desert, basically. Particularly when you see a team like Washington, who has a rookie quarterback who is projected to, not even be close to this point. This is incredibly heavy stuff. So please don't fall into the trap of thinking the books are missing these lines. Let's dominate. A couple more 1 o'clock games here. Another really interesting conversation. Detroit Lions on the road against Indianapolis at 1 o'clock, laying 8, 7.5, 7. I know this is absolutely sharp steam coming on Indianapolis. I looked at this game in detail because I think that there is something there. I think this is kind of like the Bucs game where the conversation is really interesting. And if we weren't giving official, gambling remarks, we'd probably sit here and debate it for 20 minutes just in terms of pure debate. But let's talk about it for at least a minute here. Detroit laying a shortish number, maybe strong, not entirely sure. Guns, any thoughts on this one?
Which game?
Notre Dame recap.
You want the Notre Dame recap? Let me tell you about it, man. Woo! Did we beat on the Army, baby? Told you this was going to be
Detroit at Indianapolis.
all right. Detroit and
The
Indianapolis.
Anthony Richardson saga continues.
We talked about this backstage. I don't have a write up on it or anything. But I kind of slightly lean towards the Colts side, and I lean towards the underside. When I first originally looked at this game, I was like, "Oh, the total is interesting," because every time that total hits 50. In Detroit games, the under is 3-1 in those spots, and then you have Detroit coming off a monster thrashing of yet another lower tiered team. But I think the situation is very odd for them, right? They come off that big home win. Now they have to go on the road to go play in Indianapolis. Granted, it is a domed, and both teams can put up points. But I think there's also a little bit of a look ahead when you got the Chicago Bears on deck in a short week. Who knows what the thought process is going into this game? You may see a flat spot here from Detroit. I know everybody got in whoever is going to be slamming Detroit today. I just don't think this is the spot here. You get it, especially, I mean, if you get it at 7 or less, yeah, I would say probably you should take Detroit. But if you can get a 7.5, I lean towards the Colts. I know I probably, if I do that, I'd probably lose my money because Detroit is just on a wild thumping. They're the best team in the NFL right now. But yeah, that's my lean on this one. I think it's Colts and unders is, if I put a gun to my head, no pun intended, that's where I'd go with the game.
Yeah. Anything?
No, I just think it's you can see the steam moving it a little bit, right? But then on the other side, like looking at John Ewing on Twitter, and obviously he works for MGM, but he has a lot of good data on what MGM is seeing and doing. The Lions continue to be a popular pick with bettors. A Colts cover would be good. A win would make our day. So they're probably getting thrown in teases as well. It's a tough spot. Now the other side of that, just to keep it in mind, is they, despite that 9-1 record, right, and being in the driver's seat of their destiny, maybe even the number 1 seed, the Vikings are 8-2 and the Packers are 7-3. This division is tight, so there's really not a lot of room to let up, right, which plays into their favor a little bit if Dan Campbell can keep the team that focused despite the short week and the division matchup coming up on Thanksgiving.
Yeah, and I think that's another theme we're going to start integrating as we get into the 4 o'clock games here. There's a lot of short week look-aheads this week. Thanksgiving Day, triple header, and Black Friday, also a game. So some of these teams, I didn't mention it with the Dallas situation, but Dallas is coming off of a short week Monday Night Football and then has another short week looking ahead to Dallas. It makes Washington even better. And you look at this spot for Detroit. I mean, this is a historically poor spot in terms of the actual calendar date for Detroit. Sometimes teams are just so turned up that it doesn't make a difference how bad the calendar spot is, but this is really poor. As we said, coming off of a sequence of victories and have to look ahead to a Thursday game at home at 12:30 against Chicago. And I think this holds significant weight, more so than you would think, because last year on Thanksgiving Day at home, a very upstart Lions team lost outright to the Packers. So I think there's going to be even more of a potential for a look ahead because they're going to be so focused on not letting their fans down at home on Thanksgiving Day like they did last year. And I think that it really does open the door for Indy to keep this close, which is why you're seeing a lot of sharp steam on Indy. Indy is very good at home. Shane Steichen has this group very turned up. Richardson last week looked like a new human. Good for him. But I think the competitive quality will be there. I don't know about the total. Guns, you have further remarks?
No, you mentioned the scheduling thing, and that kind of popped in my head, and I think that's why it makes that Washington play stronger. That might even hit my card now. Now I'm thinking about it, because there was a couple teams that had that similar type of situation in their schedule. The Saints did, and the Seahawks did. Go look how they performed in that situation where they had to play 3 games in 11 days. I think the Seahawks got pummeled in every single situation, and the Saints got trounced as well. So if you have that weird scheduling where you have a Monday Night Football game, then you got to go play Sunday, and then you got a Thursday night game, that is a bad scheduling situation. And I think every single team that's been in that situation this year has absolutely gotten waxed in that spot. And then you have the second leg of it. This may make my card. I think I like Washington here.
Yeah, and as I said, I think this is true. It's crazy to say because the Lions are by far the best group, or the best team in this group that's going to be playing on Thursday. It really is that big of a letdown for them because they lost last year at home on Thanksgiving. So they're going to be so focused on Thanksgiving this year to take care of the Bears. And this is a random out-of-conference game. I mean, these teams haven't played since 2020. The last time these teams played, it was Phillip Rivers versus Matthew Stafford. So talk about dating us in a 4-year window. I mean, Phillip Rivers seems like he hasn't been in the league in a decade. And, I was going to make one more comment on the game. The only deterrent for me in taking Indy here was the fact that in the last out-of-conference home game, Buffalo did hammer, or not out-of-conference, out-of-division home game, Buffalo did hammer Indy 30-20. The thing about that game, though, that I think does give some credential to Indy here, Buffalo didn't play particularly well. Josh Allen threw a couple horrible interceptions. That was kind of still in that window where the Colts didn't have a defined vision of their quarterback situation. It was Joe Flacco, and Flacco actually threw 2 picks in the first 5 minutes of the game, which actually gave Buffalo a quick 10-0 lead, and they won by 10. So if you actually just look at it in terms of that context, without the first 5 minutes, basically Flacco giving them 10 points, the game would have been tied in the fourth quarter, and Buffalo didn't play particularly well. So I really think that Indy is probably the correct side here. And final point on this, something I saw before the show, which I think is interesting. Indy runs a zone defense, most of their scheme. And historically, Jared Goff has really struggled with zone defense. I believe the statistic I saw was he throws almost a 1-to-1 TD to interception ratio historically against zone defenses. And you guys have seen this year with this guy. He will cluster interceptions. He had how many? 5 against the Texans or something?
Yeah.
And he had 3. And not only that, but talk about their worst performance of the year. Truthfully, you can make an argument their worst performance of the year was that game at the Texans. They did not cover the spread 26-23. They were down significantly. Goff played terribly. And the key point there, out of conference, road game at the AFC South, young upstart team. The Indy's 100% the correct side here. And I know a lot of sharps are on this. We're not on it. I don't love fading Detroit, but Indy is probably the correct side here. Staying at 1 o'clock, another out of division, out of conference game, a very interesting game here. This is a great conversation here on this week 12 because a lot of these games that look terrible have really interesting narratives behind them. Chiefs 9-1 at Panthers 3-7. It looks like your average grease fire disaster game. No, all of a sudden Carolina's competing. 2-0 straight up last 2. Bryce Young has found something. The Chiefs just lost their first game. We thought the Chiefs were supposed to lose week after week. They finally did. But the key point here is once they lose, they're not supposed to bounce back and win another 9 in a row. And I'm not saying they're going to lose to the Panthers. I do think the Panthers could keep this tight. Any thoughts on this one?
Yeah, if you look at statistically what Kansas City has done on offense, it hasn't been a lot. It's been the defense, and it's been, taking advantage of what's given to them late. Obviously, maybe a couple little penalties sprinkled in there. But it's not a team that's blowing people out, right? And that's where that fight and that Carolina, some of the changes that they've made on offense could come into play, where maybe this is a backdoor. I wouldn't be comfortable laying as much as I'm not comfortable taking it with the Panthers. I wouldn't be comfortable laying the 10.5 just because of the way Kansas City's played, although I think they do bounce back. I actually kind of like Carolina first half here. I think maybe a little bit of Kansas City lackluster effort despite that loss, and I think it may take a little while where you get another great kind of, akin to those old Dubs teams, right? The third quarter Chiefs, the second half Chiefs come alive and go win this game. So it could be a second half or a live look for me. It could lean Carolina early, and I think it could stay within the number.
Yeah, Guns, any thoughts on this one?
It's the biggest line they've had all season. And if you know anything about Kansas City, they play within a possession of everybody they go against this season.
They play up or down to competition.
Exactly. But they're coming off a loss too. So this is, first loss of the year, kind of got punched in the mouth by the Buffalo. We capped that one correctly, took Buffalo. But in this situation, I don't know what we're going to see because they haven't been in this type of coming off a loss all year. Are they going to come out and smash them in the mouth, or are they looking ahead to the Black Friday game? The look ahead line in against the Raiders is 12 right now. So is this just an upward movement for Kansas City coming off that loss? Who knows? It wasn't a game that I even took a second to look at just because double-digit favorites Carolina Panthers. I've been trying to avoid them at all costs. I don't know which spot to take them and which spot to fade them. So who knows what's going to happen in this game? We could see Kansas City by margin for the first time this year. but nothing I'm going to be taking.
Yeah, I mean, we're sitting here talking about people that love to take underdogs. I've seen some guys take Carolina week after week back when Carolina was running like a 10% cover rate. This might be the time you want to keep piling on to Carolina. As I said, 2-0 straight up last two. This is momentum. Momentum in pro football is very real. You don't get a lot of games. So once you win a couple, you start to see it better. You trust yourself. And as Gunn said, this is a terrible spot for Kansas City. I don't care they just lost to Buffalo. It's a tough game. It was a tight game in the fourth quarter. If Josh Allen doesn't have like a 30-yard touchdown run on fourth down, we could be having a different conversation. They could have kicked a field goal and walked it off and won another game. So it was finally basically the dispersion. I talk about this all the time, but it's not pro football. It's just data and analytics and dispersion of numbers and patterns. Basically, they were playing coin flip after coin flip, and Kansas City finally lost a coin flip. So the point here is every game's a coin flip with them. And 11.5 is just a coin flip on that number versus this opponent as it's graded by books. I think it's another coin flip. And I honestly think that the look ahead to Black Friday game is real. I mean, you've seen this week, the year after year with Kansas City. They kind of hit that mid to late season swoon, if you will, downturn. I remember last year they played a handful of really poor football games late season. They lost outright, I believe, to the Raiders on Christmas last year at home. It's one of those things too. When you're running a clean sheet, there's a lot of pressure to win every game. And when you finally lose one, you kind of take a breath and you're like, all right, we don't have to keep pressing. Like, we'll reset. And it's not so much get your energy back 4 days later. Get your energy back December 15th for the stretch run in the playoffs. I think you could see another lackluster effort here from Kansas City this week. If I had to free play this, I would lean towards the Panthers to lose inside of 10 points. So a great conversation and the intrigue of statistics, patterns that apply to pro sports. Far more than just knowing the players and watching the games, gentlemen. We appreciate you guys for listening to these type of conversations. Staying the course. We're going 4 o'clock, 3 games, a bunch of officials. We love the 4 o'clock slate today. 4:05 in Las Vegas, Allegiant Stadium. Broncos on the road at the Raiders. Guns was up overnight watching Notre Dame, Colorado State, Nevada. I don't think he slept. He's capping totals like a certifiable guru. Another total in this game, over 41.
I gotta work for the people. People expect me to know everything about college, and guess what? I absolutely murdered the board yesterday, and I was elated. Had some libations, enjoying the Notre Dame Irish win, and now I'm looking at totals in the NFL. This is a grind. Corporate Guns is in effect, but we have Denver versus Las Vegas, right? Allegiant Stadium, Las Vegas, Nevada. 4:05 is a kick, divisional matchup, indeed. We have Denver 6-5 in the year going against a Raiders team that is 2-8 on the year and on a 6-game losing streak, right? With the Raiders, one of the worst teams in the league as far as giving up points to opponents. They're 29th in the league in that statistic, giving up 28.5 points per game. In their 6-game losing streak, teams are scoring 8.9 points above their season average. This is so when you play the Raiders, you're going to have yourself an offensive day. The Raiders have also given up 31.3 points per game to their opponents on this losing streak. So there's an upward tick in regression in the Raiders defense. And then when Denver loses, their production is low, but in their wins this season, their offense has flourished. Denver averages 13.2 points per game in their 5 losses. In their 6 wins, they average 28.2 points per game. So if you think Denver's going to win this game, and I think that they're going to trounce them, you're going to see a high-scoring affair from Denver. Last time these two teams met, Denver won the game 34-18 as 3-point favorites at home, and now they're 6-point favorites on the road. That gives you an indicator from the books that's telling you Denver's going to smash this Raiders team, in my opinion. I'm not on the side, but the total is more intriguing because the total was 36 last time these two teams played. Now it's 41. Gives you an indication of upward movement in the scoring. The over is 5-1 in Raiders' last 6 games, and Denver is 5-2 to the over in their last 7 games. So while you think Denver has a good defense, they can hold teams to low scoring. There's a contrarian spot there where they got to be taking the over here. The Raiders putting up 20 points per game in the last 4 games as well. So that gives, I think, with Denver being able to get over that 30, maybe 28, or get into that average with like they've been doing in their wins, and then you have the Raiders putting up 20 or something like that, that's going to get you enough for the over here. So the over set at 41, and I love it. Denver Raiders over 41.
Yeah, I just want to give a shout out to the chat. See our guy Galen in the house. What's up, brother? Peter Gracia, of course, dropping the fire. Anthony interacting. He's on his phone right now, live here, shooting it up with the people. And of course, Joey Harb says, I don't say this often. Minnesota -3 is a smash play today. We actually agree numerically. It is a Minnesota spot. When you see the Vikings laying points on the road with this current roster construction, it's a strong spot. Full discussion prior in this broadcast, but staying center here, 4 o'clock in Vegas. I'm officially on Denver at -4.5. That is 5.5 now. And this is another one of those spots. Some people love the dog. I saw it all over X. Guys, there's far more complexity to capping sports than just fading a 6-5 team off a win and finding a 2-8 team at home. And I'm going to go through it. You look at Denver here. Denver's 6-5 straight up, 8-3 ATS. Their 4-0 ATS is a favorite. And that's a really noteworthy point because it means that books have adjusted to the strength of this team very quickly. A team that was not expected to be favored really in any games this year with rookie quarterback Bo Nix. So when the books have them favored, when you are taking the dog here, you're actually saying to yourself, sports books, multi-trillion-dollar algorithms know nothing. And me, the guy who's doing this, knows everything. I encourage you to think more clearly, and you really start to look at the actual competitive dynamic of this game. Denver is coming off of a win. Yes, a blowout against Atlanta, but they did lose the 2 games before that. So they're actually 1-2 straight up last 3. So you can make an argument it's a buy low here for Denver, and Denver has significant motivation in this game, barely ahead of Indianapolis, Miami, and Cincinnati at the back end of the AFC playoff race. And this is not a team that just caught some wind, some luck, this, and that. This is Sean Payton, a Super Bowl winning coach. And this is Bo Nix, who transferred, obviously, in college from Auburn to Oregon. But key point, if you listen to this guy, it's like I talked about with CJ Stroud. Some of these rookie quarterbacks, second-year quarterbacks, have the mental game of a person far, far older. This guy, Bo Nix, is very mature. I think the Payton-Nix combination is just not going to let down here because, again, they're only 1-2 last 3 straight up. They're not hot. They're cold. And you look at the Raiders. Hate to say it, guys. The Raiders started 4-4 ATS. When you're starting Aiden O'Connell and Gardner Minshew and you're moving parts all around, 4-4 ATS is a heater. They're actually a sell statistically. And you saw it the last 2 weeks, cratering down, got blown out at Cincinnati. Cincinnati hadn't covered a home game until then, and they hit them by 17, 41-24. And last week at Miami, 34-19. So now you go from Cincinnati to Miami, back home for 1, and then you have Kansas City on Friday afternoon on the road. Brutal trap home sandwich one-off spot, and that's a Kansas City team that they played tight at home a couple weeks ago. Huge revenge game against the champs in their next game. And truthfully, that game last week against Miami was a little closer than it looked. Miami got a late touchdown to get to that 15 margin. It was right around a touchdown. So this is not so much that the Raiders played horribly and you're buying low. They actually competed aggressively last week. And as I said, one-off, back on the road, short week, terrible spot. And final point, divisional line functionality and a really nice buy low on Denver in this matchup. I can guarantee you people didn't look at this stat. Sometimes you have to zoom out in the matchup to see what's happened over the last few years. Las Vegas is actually 8-1 straight up, 7-2 ATS last 9 against Denver. 8-1. People quickly forget Vegas has been dominant in this matchup, and it flipped in week 5. Vegas at Denver, 34-18. Now Denver is laying more on the road than they were laying at home. The books think this is a continued buy. It's not a revenge game in season. It's a large window, continued revenge for Denver and Sean Payton and Bo Nix. Absolutely top look at the 4 o'clock hour. 4.5, -4.5, 1 unit. And any thoughts on this game?
Nope. We can keep it moving. Let's go Broncos.
Next play, 425. Big game. All of a sudden, not such a big game due to continued injuries with the Niners. And ultimately, the Niners, it's very unfortunate to see this level of injury. It's been the receivers, the running backs. Now it's Nick Bosa and Brock Purdy. I mean, it couldn't get much worse game after game for this team. On the road to the Packers, this was supposed to be a marquee game. I believe this is the top Fox game at that window. I think it's probably will be Brady on the call with that host. I forgot his name. It's unfortunate. We're getting Brandon Allen and we're getting Anthony with an official Packers minus 5.5.
Yeah, I'm just going to take it. I mean, I hate to make it about, injuries and players, but we got Brandon Allen, journeyman, started with Denver in 2019, then 3 seasons with Cincinnati. Really didn't see a lot of time. He was on his couch in 23, and here he is starting today for the San Francisco 49ers. Yes, they have a great system, but I don't think the offensive line is that healthy. Trent Williams probably will play today, but he comes in questionable. McCaffrey back last week, but, looked okay. Right? Maybe not as explosive, maybe still some lingering calf, Achilles type of injuries there. And this is really a perfect spot for the Pack. They're at home. They're sitting third in the NFC North, clinging to a second wild card out of those 3 wild card spots. So they need this game, right? You also have a little bit of that, big brother, little brother relationship between LaFleur and Shanahan. LaFleur is 2-3 against him. So he hasn't always coached well, but I do think in this spot, they get it done. It's too much for San Francisco to overcome with the way they've been trending. And it just might be the year from hell for the San Francisco 49ers, right? Too many injuries, too much to overcome, better play in the division. They're still not out of it though, right? Even with the loss today, because this is a non-division matchup, they just need to take care of business, get healthy, which is probably what you see why they're sitting some of these guys. I just don't think the full motivation is going to be there. So give me the 5.5. It's 6 in some spots. I love it under a touchdown. And I think it's a spot where you finally get Green Bay. Hasn't really played their best offensive game from start to finish. Maybe it starts clicking for Jordan Love and that team today. He missed some time early in the year, right? So now he's been getting right. You see a little bit of that upward trend. So it's just 2 teams for me going in different directions. I'm going to play the spot, 5.5, 6. Let's go.
Yeah, this is just a tough one for me. Guns, any thoughts?
Tough one for me too. I don't know what to do with this game at all, just because of the injuries. Brandon Allen, Razorback, coming into this game. I haven't seen him playing forever. I don't know. I can't even recall the last time I've seen him in a game. But you also have injury issues, not with Brock Purdy out, of course, Trent Williams, Nick Bosa, a lot of this stuff. Key injuries to key players in this game. I have just a weird, funky feeling with the line did uptick from 1.5 up to 5.5 and 6. It's baked into the line. To me, it's a coin flip. I don't know where what the direction and the motivation from both sides are into this game. And I really don't know what Brandon Allen can do. So I'm completely just off this game. There's plenty of other looks on the board for me.
Yeah, it's with the quarterback situation, it becomes such a tough cap. I do think at least one comment here. I probably have 2, but one comment. This is not like NBA basketball when the best players are out, the other team just lets down. No, when teams are injured in the NFL, the other team just pounces on them. And I think that would speak to Green Bay here clearly. Another point on Green Bay buying, I think, which is a really nice buy here statistically. Green Bay is actually 0-4 ATS last 4. Didn't cover last week. Got very fortunate to win that game late at Chicago. Took a home loss prior to that in the division against the Lions. Melted a game at the Jags and did beat the Texans. Didn't cover the spread. So 0-4, you want to buy that. And our guy Jabaka says sprinkle on Debo over rushing. I certainly don't mind that play at all. And as Guns mentioned, San Francisco, so many injuries, just trying to get healthy for the home stretch. They could absolutely get into the playoffs in the wild card, maybe the division, not entirely sure there, but they could still get there. Just get healthy and then go on a run, finish the season 4-0 straight up or 5-0 straight up, something like that. And Peter says, Belichick era type of stuff. It really is. Not so much the injuries, but just the fact that you don't necessarily have to win the regular season to win the Super Bowl. So I think San Francisco is well coached. Kyle Shanahan is obviously a very smart human being. He knows this. Get healthy. We'll figure it out later. I think the Packers probably are the side here. Unfortunate we're not going to see a better game here at 425 at Lambeau. But big-time game here, 425 in Seattle. Only disagreement play on this broadcast. Cardinals at Seahawks. The line has flip-flopped all week, right around the money line. Ant disagrees with the shark and the gun. This guy has some balls on
2-on-1 here, boys.
Anthony, talk to us. You're taking Seattle. Well,
I'm doing.
bless you, man. Bless you.
This is what it's about: competition, analysis. We have fun too, right? A lot of alignment. The three-way collabs have been killing it. Now we're really going to see where the bread is baked, right? Tommy Cutlet style here. But no, I do like Seattle. I think, look, this division is so interesting, right? All these teams, including San Francisco, are really in the mix. So Arizona leads the division right now at 6-4. You have a bunch of teams jumbled up at that 5-5 mark. So everybody's kind of in it. Now, for me, the biggest issues for Seattle have been their offensive line. It's led to the fourth most sacks given up in the league, fifth highest pressure rate allowed. Geno's thrown 11 picks, right? He's looked sloppy because he's been under duress so much. They also can't run the ball, sitting at 28th in rushing, averaging about 91.5 yards per game. So in terms of winning at the line of scrimmage, they're 25th in pass block win rate and they're 30th in run block win rate. So I'm describing a terrible offensive line. But how do you counter that? What do? Well, you get the home game, right? You get the division matchup, two teams that probably know each other schematically pretty well. You have another division game in a couple weeks. I actually think these teams will split and both will take the home and home games here in the division because for whatever reason, these games are only spread out 3 weeks, something I hate about how the NFL scheduling works. But the remedy for me here is the Arizona Cardinals on defense. They are 31st in pass rush win rate and 23rd in run stop win rate. They have a low blitz rate at 18.9%. Most of the teams sit north of 20%. I think only the Jags and Bills have a lower blitz rate and a low hurry rate, right? So hurry rate, putting pressure on that quarterback, like we mentioned, they're at 6.5%. Only the Giants, Panthers, and just barely by like a tenth of a point of the Bengals are lower. So in terms of the pressure and the success that they're going to have getting to the ball, I think it will actually counteract some of that offensive line woes that Seattle has had. And I think Seattle will do enough. This is at a pick 'em, right? So it's really, you just need this team to win outright. And I think that's going to play into what Geno Smith and this team can do. Coming off a big win last week, another big win in the division and a big comeback. So, statistically, some of the numbers that these guys will get into might work against me, but I love the matchup here. I think these teams split. So in 2 or 3 weeks, you may see me back here on the other side, the home team then in the Arizona Cardinals. Today, give me the home team, and that's the Seattle Seahawks. Pick them. Let's go.
Guns picks. Enlighten us on the other side. I have comments. I'm fired up.
I'll say this. If you think there's going to be a split, I think you just got it reversed because the way these two teams play, Seattle at home has not been very good. I mean, you can take the Denver game and you can take the Miami game into consideration in their first 2 home games. But remember, Miami didn't have Tua. And then, of course, it was Bo Nix's first game of his career. And that was actually a close game. He played really well in this one. But when we're looking at this divisional matchup here, Arizona's 6-4 in the year and on a 4-game win streak. They're upward momentum, as we say here on the show. And then we have Seattle coming off a nice win on the road versus divisional opponent in San Francisco. So the highs of highs are coming from the Seattle team. Then Seattle, like I said, underperformed at home. 0-4 straight up in ATS in their last 4 home spots, losing by an average margin of 12 points per game. Arizona's just done well versus facing divisional opponents this season. They're already 2-0 straight up in ATS in those spots, and that was against the Rams in San Francisco. And then Seattle had Arizona's number historically in the last 4 games. But this is a different Arizona team here. And you have an Arizona team that is winning divisional games, and they've covered their last 4. I just think Arizona is going to flourish here versus divisional opponents like they have all season. And they're going against a Seattle team that has just been awful at home, especially in their last 4. I'm just going to continue to fade this Seattle team at home. And when they're on the road, it's a different story. But I'm going to take Arizona here on the money line, -108.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm on Arizona at +1.5. And I think really the key point here, again, in these divisional matchups is zooming out. As Guns mentioned, Seattle has owned this matchup in recent history, going 4-0 ATS previous 4 before a non-cover 1-point win in week 18 last year. And this is where you talk about the law of averages shifting over a wider period of time. When Seattle had dominated against the spread going 4-0 ATS, then they won but didn't cover. That leans towards an outright loss. And if you actually go to that box score in week 18 last year, Arizona dominated the game at home. They lost 21-20, 466 yards versus only 322 for Seattle. And Arizona, Matt Prater, maybe the beginning, probably not the beginning, but certainly another one of these kickers just not hitting kicks. missed 2 field goals on the final 2 drives to not win that game. So you talk about a loss that will sting. This is Jonathan Gannon, a good coach, and it was Kyler Murray playing that game. This is what they're talking about this week in the locker room. Guys, we should have beaten them last time. 2 missed field goals, dominated. Let's go kick their ass. And it's like I said with the Denver take. Vegas had dominated for seasons. Now the momentum is shifting the other way. And speaking of the momentum shifting the other way, again, you have to zoom out with Arizona. Arizona is 4-0 straight up in ATS last 4. So I know there's people in sports books and sports bars saying they're too hot. So, well, zoom out. The last 4 seasons, from week 14, 2021 through week 6 of this year, Arizona was 11-35 straight up. And this is a conversation we had for years with the Lions in their come up. When a team is that bad for that long, to get back to even 500, they could conceivably, from a statistical perspective, win 24 straight ball games just to get back to even. They're not going to do that, of course, but look at the Lions. The Lions were egregiously, historically terrible, and they turned the corner, and now they are historically dominant. So to get to that 50-50, it's not always 1-1-1-1-1. It could be abysmal and then amazing, and then you get to 50-50. The construction of the average is not always the same. And this is an Arizona team that bottomed out significantly, coming heavy now. And as Guns mentioned, this is where Seattle's performed very poorly at home all year. They are 0-2 ATS at home in the division. Home loss against the Rams in overtime. Blown out against the Niners. This is Arizona all day. Love this spot. Collab with the Gun, +1.5, and the money line. As I said, and best of luck. Conversation wins. Going 8 o'clock. Big game tonight. I saw our man Bob in the house asking about this game. Rams or Eagles? A lot of moving parts in this game, theoretically. I have an official. I'll throw it to the Gun for some opening remarks.
Yeah, I got nothing on this game. This is kind of just a skip and pass on. I'm more heavy on the Monday night game. So, yeah, I got no take on this one.
And any comments?
I lean Rams, which I'll let you take away.
Yeah, I was giving myself a nice little breather there. And I know the Gun is...
Wait, you got to look at the private chat. We were like, skip this game. I want to go to Monday night.
I know for a fact Guns is about to get on the Rams when I give this take. So
okay. All right. I'm listening.
8:20 p.m. Inglewood. We're taking the Rams at +3. And if you really look at the Rams, started out this season very low, 1-4, 4-1 since. This is what this team does. They did almost an identical thing last year, starting 3-6 and finishing 7-1. And I think this really is psychological. As I said last week, Sean McVay, 5th or 6th year, maybe 7th year. I mean, it seems like time is flying by with this guy. Talking about retirement last year. Burnout is very real. It's very, very easy for people to watch TV and think they're pro athletes, they're professional coaches, they get paid a ton of money. Basically, they're superhuman. Normal human emotions and energies don't apply to these guys. It does. He was burning out, and this is now where the team just doesn't come out with a ton of juice early season. They won a Super Bowl a few years ago. They're not really focused on the early season. Finishing 7-1 last year was highly noteworthy, and this is where their arc is trending right now. And I think not coincidentally, their best home game all year was an out-of-division NFC primetime game, beating the Vikings 30-20 Thursday Night Football in Week 8. Here you are again, out of division in the NFC primetime game. And you look at Philadelphia. Philadelphia is really taking on the opposite type of arc to the Rams. Philadelphia, the last 3 years, has started incredibly hot all 3 years. Last year, they faded off late. I think this is where it starts. I faded them last week incorrectly. They got Washington at home. Now they got to travel out west. Funky kick time, 5 o'clock Eastern time. And if you look at this sample for Philadelphia, I think it's a great sell spot. 6-0 straight up last 6. Mostly, if not all, non-playoff teams. Cleveland, the Giants, Cincinnati, Jacksonville, Dallas, and Washington last week. Talk about a fool's goal, 6-0 sample. And this is where this cap gets even better. Guns likes to talk about the Mona Lisa handicaps. Well, I got some great stuff for you here. in terms of last year's calendar versus this year's calendar, Philadelphia is doing the polar opposite every single time. Last year at Tampa Bay, they blew them out 25-11. This year at Tampa Bay, they took a blowout loss 33-16. Last year at home against Kirk Cousins in primetime, 34-28 win. This year against Kirk Cousins, home primetime, both week 2. I mean, incredibly mirror stuff. Outright loss. Last year, road blowout loss at Dallas. This year, road blowout win at Dallas. Last year, home non-cover against Washington. This year, home cover against Washington. Every single game in the NFC, complete, utter flip from last year. What they do last year, week 5 at the Rams, 23-14 win and cover, -4.5. Revenge game Rams, shorter line. This line suggests Rams to get the dub outright. Incredible stuff all around. Guns, did I convince you?
Yeah, I got to write this one up. I'm going to do this one tonight. But yeah, I think I'm going to be on the same side as you. That's the indicator.
Absolutely. Going to run through Monday Night Football real quick. We got stuff going on here. This is a great game, Monday Night Football. Ravens off multiple losses. Chargers incredibly upstart. Guns picks tomorrow. Mondays are for momentum. Ravens catching upward momentum. Official -2.5.
This is the spot that I love taking the Ravens off a loss, and I'll get to why in a second. But Baltimore has won 7 out of the last 9 games, coming off a loss. And then you have the Chargers 7-3 with some momentum. They've won 4 straight. They have a +7 point differential in that process. But Baltimore has historically performed well off a loss. Lost to the Raiders 26-23. What do they do the next week? They go on the road and they beat Dallas as a dog 28-25. They lose to Cleveland on the road. What do they do the next week? They go back home and they trounce Denver 41-10 at home. Baltimore is 6-1 ATS off a loss, winning by an average of 14.6 points per game in their last 7 in those situations, and covering the spread by 8.9 points per game on average. And then you got a Chargers team that's won 4 straight. Congratulations, Chargers. You won 4 straight. But who did you beat? You beat the Saints 4-7. They're ranked 23rd in the Massey Power Rankings. You have Cleveland 3-8 team, 26 in the power rankings. Tennessee 2-8 on the year, 28th in the power rankings. And Cincinnati last week in prime time, 4-7 on the year. They're ranked 21st in the power rankings. They're going against a Baltimore team, however, who's ranked 6th in the Massey Power Rankings currently. And what do the Chargers love to do? They love to run the ball. They're 8th in rush play percentage, and they're facing a Baltimore defense that's ranked number 1 in opposing rush yards per carry and 2nd in opposing yards per game. Baltimore has historically come back strong off a loss. John Harbaugh is going to have these guys thumping. It is the Harbaugh Bowl, by the way, folks. Bringing it back from the Super Bowl. Let's see what happens. But I think the Baltimore will be the one to succeed here. And I got it here at -3, -102, Baltimore all day long.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree. I will be looking at this more tomorrow. Hour and 8 minutes in the books. NFL, the extra points, the big show, week 12. We appreciate you guys immensely for hanging out with us for over an hour. We love to bring you the top picks, analysis, hype, and conversation. My 6 top plays: New England, Miami over 45.5. That is a 3-way collaboration play. The Shark, the Gun, the Odds Fellow. Washington -10, Denver -4.5, Arizona +1.5 collab with the Gun, and Houston -7. Guns over 46 Miami, Minnesota, Chicago under 39.5, Tennessee, Houston under 40.5, Denver, Las Vegas over 41. 4 totals for the Gun. Take note: Arizona -108 and Baltimore -2.5. And with the over in Miami, of course, Green Bay -5.5. Disagreement, Seattle. A pleasure as always, gentlemen. Guns picks. Close them out with some words, and let's dominate.
Yeah, Shark forgot to add my prop. I like over on the pass attempts for Drake May today at 33.5. He is going to be throwing the ball and hurting his shoulder like Brock Purdy. Just kidding. But that's going to do it here for the extra points. Make sure you like and subscribe to the Gunsmith channel. Make sure you like and subscribe to the Shark and Waters Nation channel and support us. We're doing this for the low, low price of $0.00. And also check us out all on X. We have _odds_fellows. Sharks in Sports 88 and Guns Picks on all social media platforms, X, Instagram, and TikTok. I also do dances on TikTok. You want to go check that out? No, I'm just kidding. I just post clips from the show. But that's going to do it here for the extra points. Let's cash some tickets. Let's dominate the board. And as always, oh, let's keep dancing. Bye.